Welcome to the Marshall Pruitt Podcast, brought to you by Cooper Tires and the Justice Brothers. We have a special feature for you here. That is my friend and partner, Graham Goodwin, my co-host for the Week in Sports Cars show, sitting down with the man himself, Stephane Ratel, head of the SRO Sports Car Organization, for about an hour, actually in the midst of the 10 Hours of Japan Intercontinental race held last weekend. Fascinating stuff from these two, knowing that through the SRO, which now holds a controlling stake in the World Challenge Series here in North America under the Blancpain blanket, also looking at the ongoing heavy presence of Blancpain, plus the emerging presence of this intercontinental endurance, true endurance format, globetrotting with the GT cars under the GT3 and GT4 formula specifically, one that will be visiting here in the U.S. next year at Indianapolis. Look at all that, plus the emergence of GT2 as well under the SRO. Lots to cover. So glad that Stephane spent about an hour with Graham in Japan here. And so whether it is what is happening today with the organization and its many series and what it has in mind for the future, lots of details, lots of interesting tidbits to come from this conversation. If you haven't had a chance, pay a visit to our brand new site, MarshallPruittPodcast.com, where you can find not only our 600 plus episodes cataloged neatly in a variety of categories, but also just about every method we can think of for you to subscribe. So let's get rolling with our man, Mr. Goodwin, and Mr. Ratel, all brought to you by Cooper Tires and the Justice Brothers.
Well, we're in the office of Stephane Ratel, the father of modern GT racing, 25 years celebrated last year, in the offices above the pit lane at Suzuka. And you'll hear in the background the cars circulating. We are already with the Suzuka 10 Hours underway. Big crowd here at this fantastic circuit. IGTC, Stephane, we'll talk about that first, beginning to gain some real momentum. Big manufacturer interest from the custom racing community. Many of the events, some of them okay, well-established events in their own right, coming together as something which is looking like it's going to have multiple blue-ribboned events on a global scale. Tell me about the vision and tell me whether or not this is actually coming together as you planned it.
First of all, it's absolutely great to be here at Suzuka. We were talking about 25 years, and 25 years ago I was enjoying the track behind the wheel, because I raced here from 94 to 96, and it's really one of my favorite and definitely one of the best circuits in the world, most enjoyable. You have really passionate fans, and it's great to be back. And the traditional 1,000 kilometers that became the 10 hours, it was a wonderful surprise when Suzuka contacted us to join the Intercontinental GT Challenge, which started as a link between Bathurst and Spa. Then we added Sepang, and then came this wonderful invitation to come and include the Suzuka 1,000 kilometers that became 10 hours as part of the Intercontinental GT. I mean, the numbers speak for themselves. Last year we had, I would say, 3.5 manufacturers, because we had McLaren, but was not really a manufacturer entry, so we had really 3 manufacturers entered in the Intercontinental GT. This year we have 8. What a jump. Certainly Suzuka and the collection of great circuits we have contributed to it. The addition of the Kyalami 9 Hours, the revival of the Kyalami 9 Hours also contributed, and the concept is so simple, is so clear. It's one race per continent, 5 continents, and 5 absolutely iconic circuits. And
at the time that I've known you and I've known the products that you've been responsible for delivering on the world stage, it strikes me that you've been looking for some time through the days with BPR, then FIGT, and that adventure into the GT1 days, and now here we are with IGTC. You've always been looking for the opportunity to have a sustainable, and that's an important word here, sustainable global product. This feels like the best shot so far.
I mean, the rest have been pretty. I mean, the old Blancpain, 10 years has been quite sustainable with the endurance part has been at and above 50 cars for 9 years, which is really a great level of sustainability. But here it's definitely, I mean, the Intercontinental GT is, I believe, has a great potential for further development. Okay, there are challenges. Our biggest challenge is America, because Bathurst was already established. Suzuka is super established, but is an astonishing event. We are very confident that Calamy will be a successful rebirth right out of the box. But we need to, beside the sporting success, we need to make it also a commercial success, because it's a real promotion with a promotion company, which is in Calamy, which is specialized in music, in concert. So it's a great promoter, but now we need to revive and hope that. I raced in Calamy, I think the last time when John Mongolezzi went there.
Oh, wow.
We brought the Lamborghini Super Trophy, and the crowd was absolutely spectacular. But it's 20 years ago, so will see if they come back.
But you've got some young, talented drivers.
Yeah, we have two. We have Pepper van der Linde. We have two young South African drivers, and I'm sure that will contribute to the success of the event. So I come back to America, and America is really the challenge, because you don't have one existing long distance GT event. You have with IMSA, you have a very well established long distance endurance championship, but not one where GT can win overall. So we had to establish this race. We tried for 3 years in Laguna Seca. It has proven difficult. So when something doesn't work, you need to try something else. And we needed a name and a location that was at the same level as the great collection we have on the 4 other continents. So if you don't go to Laguna, I think the one in Indianapolis. So it was a natural fit, and also what we found out in America, that we can bring, like we see it here, IGTC can bring, the Intercontinental can bring 20 cars, 22 cars, but we're not going to bring 40 cars. So the national competitors are absolutely essential everywhere we go. They are the Australian in Bathurst, the Asians here, because we also have a lot of Blancpain Asia competitors which are coming. And in America, we need the American teams. And we saw that if it's in the first part of the season, it's difficult. And that's the problem we had with Laguna. They could only give us a date in the first part of the season. And while we are at the end, we think we will have more interest. And also now, Indianapolis, the 8 hour, will be also part of the GT World Challenge America. So if everything goes well, if we have 20 international cars coming and 20 American cars, we can reasonably expect to be, maybe we'll lose a few, but to be same level of grid that we have here, with only GT3, 35 to 40 cars. That's the goal.
Absolutely, and a perfectly attainable goal, as we've seen this weekend with 36 here, with 1 or 2 late kind of dropouts, but it could have been 40. Let's talk about that vision. There's 2 questions that kind of occur. One is, what is it you need that race to do to be, for starters, sustainable before we get to the stage? Because clearly you're building something in a new market there with Indianapolis. That means you've got to be reasonably confident, I guess, of the numbers you'll have in your domestic championship, and that they will go with your vision of a longer race, because that has been a very much more sprint endurance championship to this point. So I guess the first question is, what kind of feedback are you getting, is Greg Gill getting from the established competitors in the US following on from that announcement?
Well, we haven't had bad reaction. Nobody has called me. I haven't received furious emails. Greg has not reported, an outcry of customers being unhappy about it. when we redesigned the GT World Challenge at the big for this season, speaking to the team, the majority wanted 8 events. So we said, let's be reasonable. Let's start with 7, and instead of adding an 8th event, we added a longer race.
Okay.
So I think budget-wise, that should be okay. Because you have more running time, but you don't have the cost of another, and in America the distance are so large that the cost of transport is important. So I guess it will be well perceived, and we should have a good grade.
That's part one, and of course that's the essential part, which is that you've got a customer base that will support your vision. That's absolutely essential. We'll come back to actually I think what demarcates the way that you've approached your product. The second part is, will the fans come? Now, you're absolutely right. We've got some well-established events that are now neatly packaged with IGTC. This is one of them here in Suzuka. Fantastic fan reaction to this event. Indianapolis might be a bit different. What do you need to happen to make that sustainable on the commercial side, on the other side of the fence, if you like?
But since the Intercontinental runs also, it's really completely different markets, 5 different continents. We've seen the number grow in Bathurst. Spa is really continuing to grow, and we could see with really terrible weather this year, we had a very impressive turn up. And here, it could be what we need here. We need in Suzuka. We really need the top Japanese factory supported teams that run in GT300. We would need official Lexus. We would need really official Nissan and that from the Japanese team. We don't have them, and I hope they will come, and that will help with the public. In America, we start from the a white page. So we have to promote. We believe that all the manufacturers that are in Intercontinental GT and that other may be joining will have an interest to bring people to really use the event for promotion. And Indianapolis is a great motorsport destination, so we need to work all together with the manufacturers to bring a crowd, and that won't come overnight. We don't believe we're going to arrive there first race and have what I learned in motorsport is you need time, you need to be patient, and over time, if the manufacturer help us, I think we can have success. And also, one of the advantages, it's always been difficult in America if you go with our product on a circuit where you have one of the big IMSA event. The manufacturer tell you, we already do, we already activate with IMSA, we don't need to do it. Well, in Indianapolis, you don't have an IMSA race, so I think we'll have more chance to get them behind and do something. That's the plan.
At your Spa press conference was a very impressive calendar announced, and I think one of the most impressive parts of that was this fairly rapid expansion of product you've got worldwide, and no clashes with anything. You've actually got a global set of products, regionalised global set of products, and no clashes with that. That knits in beautifully with conversations that I've been having this weekend with a number of the manufacturers and a number of professional race teams, talking about particularly the GT3 market, that effectively it's plug and play. A gentleman driver can decide what they want to do. They can enter a big race or two, they can enter IGTC, they can enter here, there, everywhere.
And the professional drivers can have a crazy program.
They can.
They can run 26 race events.
Miguel Molina was reminding me 4 programs this year with the WC thing he's just added to it. But beyond the SRO world, it is getting to be pretty difficult, isn't it, on the international phase? Not your concern. Your concern is what's happening here. But it's getting pretty difficult, isn't it, for international motorsport? We're stumbling over each other. There is almost, arguably, too much motorsport.
we can only look at our product. What we've done is really we didn't create much apart from, if you look, we just took over. The World Challenge existed in America. We didn't create it. GT Asia existed. We just built another series that took over. Suzuka existed, Bathurst existed. So if you look at what we've created ex nihilo, there is not much. What we've done is we took over, repackaged, and brought together as a global platform. I mean, the world of GT racing was extremely fragmented, and over 20 years we've developed it and we packaged it. Now it's very clear. You have a World Challenge and you have an Intercontinental Challenge. You have an Intercontinental Challenge for factory-supported competition, which is what it is, and you have a World Challenge for customer racing. Simple. And this World Challenge for customer racing covers 3 continents, offers 23 non-clashing events, and it's a great, with Spa and now Indianapolis being part both of the Intercontinental and the World, and that offers the fans, the broadcasters, the possibility of, effectively 26 weekends where you can enjoy and follow GT racing. And also we're discussing with the manufacturer now the best scoring system for having all the manufacturers participating, so you can casually look throughout the season where it is, and you're gonna have Ferrari, Mercedes, BMW, and all of them, exactly, and see where they are in a global customer racing competition, which is at the end. If you have the best customer racing program, you need to sell cars everywhere. And you need to support in a way that you get also the best teams with the best possible drivers. So for manufacturers that are engaged in customer racing, that have customer racing division, it's a great challenge. Who's the best? Who sold the most cars to the best team and have the resources to support it with the best drivers? And at the end, I think it's a very it's two very interesting challenges, both the Intercontinental and the World.
We'll come back to the opportunities to manufacture programs in just a moment. Just to finish off with IGTC for the moment. We had the confirmation this week that the Blancpain that the Bathurst 12-hour won't be adopting part of the rules at the stint lengths and the pit stop times, which have got various opinions attached to them. That's attracted some further comment to say we should have a rule set for these 5 Intercontinental GT Challenge races. No,
because it's not the championship.
Tell me where you stand on it.
The Intercontinental GT isn't a championship. It's a challenge of existing big events.
Yeah.
Okay, or revived or creating Indianapolis, but the existing events that have their history, that have their characteristics, that have their competitors. So what we always do, we listen. That's how we always manage our championship. We listen to the teams, and then we decide. Listening to if the Australian teams, if the factory supported team that goes to Australia believe that it's better for Bathurst to stay how it is today, fine with us. Of course, we encourage for these rules to come close together as much as possible, but we accept differences.
It's an interesting one. With my colleague who's here today, just talking to KCMG and describing the very different nature of these races, and talking about some races, Bathurst being one of them, as being a safety car race. It's a race that is defined.
Exactly.
Yep. Whereas some
defined, you need to stay in the lead lap. That's it. And you have a chance until wherever, as long as you are in the lead lap, you have a chance until the end. You know, and it's very. That's why it's a bit less important than in Spa. But in general, at SRO, I know over time, if you look at the history of SRO in the last 20 years, what we've tried to do is to always try to offer an even playing field to as many teams as possible. And everything we introduced, that could have been criticized. And what criticized? From balance of performance, for driver categorization. I mean, all this was perceived with, people were shocked. It was the antithesis of racing. Balance of performance, I go, what? What do you want to do? Balance car, people simply didn't understand it. Driver categorization, people thought it was just ridiculous.
I know it's a cornerstone.
It's a cornerstone, and refueling, we applied that because in motorsport, and if you look at Formula One today, it's really the big problem of Formula One is that you have leading teams that impose an arm race that never stops, and that's the difficulty. Us, we've been from the beginning stopping the arm race, and why we introduced pit stop time is very simple. When teams to win Spa need to start having, people need to realize what it is. Flow engineers, people that all year only work on flow, on refueling towers, on optimizing fluids within it. It's absolutely crazy. Taking, optimizing the foam inside the fuel tanks to gain a second, 2 seconds. And the cost of that is ridiculous. And if you don't stop that, simply your smaller teams don't have a chance. And manufacturers sell cars which are all the same to teams, and then the teams start the development. Some people can tell me, but this is racing. But no, this is arm spending. Our racing is to offer as much of the same car. We want the team and the drivers to make the difference, but the team to make the difference through training, not through engineering. That's the difference of what we try to do. Same thing for the technical pit stop, because people don't understand the technical pits. It's very simple. A technical pit stop, if you don't impose it, you have today manufacturers that can develop brakes, ventilation, in order to do 24 hours without changing the brakes. While others, because they have heavier cars or because they don't have the possibility to do it, will have to change brakes. If you don't do that, you give de facto an advantage of 4 minutes, which can be 2 laps to some manufacturers. And that's an arm race we need to stop immediately. So all what we do is to leave it fair for everybody, and the result is that we had 72 cars at Spa this year.
Beautifully explained. Honestly, beautifully explained. I'll ask one follow-up question. As an entrepreneur, you're not exactly a fan of regulation. Entrepreneurs tend not to be. Do you regret that we've got to the point where there are so many corners now that define the shape of... Spa's a great example. Okay, it does impact significantly on the flow of that race that we've got, and what you've explained explains it beautifully, Stephane. It's not a criticism. I'm not a fan of it, but it's not a criticism. Do you regret we've got to the stage now where, to achieve that aim, and it's a very laudable aim, that we've got as much management of that race outside the teams, from race control, from the rule book, that we now have?
Yeah, but as a result, if you look from the fan base, long distance racing, how many of this 24-hour race you had when from the morning there was nothing to see? Everything was, it was simply boring. Now it has put all these cars so much together that we do have sprints up to the last laps. All of these races are just extraordinary to enjoy and find as exciting the last 2 hours of the race than the first 2 hours of the race is also, from the entertainment standpoint, and I'm an entrepreneur, but I'm an entertainer. And from the entertainer factor, I think we got it right, and these races are so fun to watch.
Okay, I'll ask one further question, because I don't want this to be a soapbox, which is, do you review those timings? Do you review those pit stop timings and that technical stop timing to see whether or not they can be more challenging? Because I think one of the criticisms that has come forward, I've been one of the ones making it, I'll put my hand up right now, is that it does remove an element of the whole team making a difference. And I do regret that.
Yeah, but it's always, then you come to Formula One. If you want teams to make the difference, go to Formula One. We want, what we see today is, and it's why you see, weekend GT racing was an old man sport. That's where we started. Now you've got, all these very young drivers that are making a career. You don't need, you go to single seater today to go to Formula One. What the ticket? What the ticket of training to go to Formula One? Maybe it's 8 million, 10 million. It's outrageous. While if you want to go the whole way, starting from karting and everything. What you look at all these young drivers that arrive in GT3, like Jules Gounon, with very little budget. And today they are factory drivers. They might not be superstars, but they make a living, and they're going to make a living for a long time. Mies and Asse, they're starting in GT3, winning our FIA European Championship, and they have been factory drivers for 10 years. This is very inspirational for many, many, many young people that want their business, their life to be motorsport.
Absolutely.
And this is thanks to the fact that it's not the money of the technical development. We are driver championship. The people that make the difference in GT3 racing today are the drivers. The people that win races are the teams that get the best drivers together. That's the reality today. And I think that the beauty of the whole system. We want drivers championship, and it's what we have today. It's a men's sport.
Yeah, absolutely. And a stellar field you've got of young and old. It's great to see.
And it continues. Always you have young guys that come and become de facto factory driver. They got a job.
Yeah.
It's not because daddy is paying to put you in a car. Daddy might be helping at the beginning, but very rapidly, if you have great talents, you end up being paid by a car manufacturer or paid by a sponsor to go and race. This is almost unique in today's motorsport, and that's GT3 racing.
Let's have a quick tiptoe through your world, and we're going to do that in numbers. It's quite an easy process. We're going to start with GT4, and we're going to work our way through to 1. GT4, been with us for some time, but it's fair to say a bit of an explosion in GT4 in just recent years, with a bit of rebirth for that and the structure you've now got through national, through continental championships. A big success.
Yeah, thanks. It's been a long... because we started GT4 the year after we launched GT3. So, 2006. It's been slow for quite a long time until we convinced our friends at Porsche. We had registered the name GT4, the trademark GT4, and Porsche was very willing of having the trademark for a road car. But GT4 couldn't be on a road car. It had to be on a race car because it was a race division. Came the launch of the Cayman GT4 Club Sport. That was such a commercial success. They sold hundreds of cars that all the other manufacturers said, wow, look at the Porsche, the success they had with this car. And then Audi, Mercedes, and everybody produced GT4 cars. And that helped being the first step of our GT global pyramid and continues to develop into national championships, and we welcome this year the start of the ADAC GT4 and others, and it's great.
And that's been a market that you've opened up through racing that has offered those customer motorsport departments the opportunity to have a product line that goes beyond motorsport. I was with McLaren at their factory not that long ago looking at, I think it was the 121st GT4 car that they built. Now, not all of those are going to race, but that's still making that company money, and that's helping them to fund their motorsport. Fabulous success, and clearly we're going to be seeing much more of that coming forward. I'm talking to manufacturers now about potential new products. GT3, and this is where that's the base plate for your success in the modern era, without a shadow of a doubt. Let's trot through some of the issues that people perceive, and just give me exactly what the answer is. Is GT3 too expensive, Stephane?
The competition is too expensive. I never forget Max Mosley used to say, give 2 scooters to 2 Formula One teams and it will spend 100 million. the base product does not need to be expensive. The competition makes it expensive. If you look in 10 years in the evolution of GT3 racing, the cars for the one that sell the most, the Lamborghini, the Audi, the Mercedes and so on, have remained very stable in prices. People say, they got so much more expensive. No, because at the beginning there were tuner cars, now they're cars built by manufacturers with a real assistance and everything. If you look at the cost of an Aston Martin DBR S9 12 years ago and the cost of an Aston Martin today, the latest one, it has been an evolution, but it's not staggering. And you got better cars. These cars do more miles on the engines, more miles on the transmission, more miles at the beginning, drive shaft and all of these. These cars were not bulletproof 24-hour racing cars. If you look at Spa, for example, the cars we lose is all out of accidents. You almost never see, they're like, they're like road cars. They go around for 24 hours full on without having any mechanical defect. So these cars are extremely, extremely strong, and they are quite the cost per mileage has not grown really in the last 10 years, but the level of competition. And that's what people have to understand. Before you speak to a team, they had a 2-car team, they had one engineer for 2 cars. Then they started having one engineer per car. Then they started having a chassis engineer and an engine engineer. Now they have 2 engineers per car. Then before they were doing brake, now they've changed brake pads before every qualifying session because they're going to gain on new brake pad a tenth of a second. It's exactly what it is today. So, the level of competition, the testing you need to do, all of these cost money. So it's just because the championship is a higher profile that the cost is bigger. But if you take a GT3 and you go into a more, confidential and gentleman driver series, it doesn't cost much that it was 10 years ago. That's the reality. And don't forget, that's the most important point. These cars resell very well.
So
because exactly. And that's the success of GT3. And I'm not going to name any other categories, but you buy some of these cars, you can keep them. Hopefully you have a museum, because if you sell them, you're going to lose 80% of the cost. While the GT3 cars, you can sell them every 2 years and you're going to lose very little. So your amortization on the cost is extremely efficient. And that's the success of GT3 racing.
You talked earlier about that battle that you fought and apparently won, by the look of what we got here, around factory involvement and how that can skew the marketplace. There's another area where changes came and were announced not that long ago. There's beginning now to mature, and we're going to be looking for what the answer is, and that's homologation numbers for GT3. So from memory, and please correct me if I'm wrong, to keep the homologation, the factory has to have built 20 cars in 2 years.
Yes.
There would appear to be 1 or 2 that might be in some risk at the moment.
Yeah, but it's customer racing. The basis is customer racing. If you can't build and sell 20 cars, that means you're too expensive. That means your technical development is not where it should be. Your car is too expensive compared to the market. So, it's better than we have 10 manufacturers, LC, that we take the risk of troubling the system with another 2. And I'm not mentioning anybody. I just say, in general, that's the base rule. And we have to maintain GT3 what it is, because you're very much at the edge of GT3 at the same time. GT4 is only customer. GTE is only factories. GT3 is really on the tip, a bridge. On one side you have sales, and on the other side you have marketing return. And for all these manufacturers is where it is, And for the moment, we've maintained that sales is as important as marketing return. So when a manufacturer designs a car, he needs to make sure that he can sell it while you need to make sure that the car will be bringing it results. So it's a very interesting, and so far it has worked. But if you let manufacturers build 4 cars, they will make cars that have no relevance. We had the Cadillac in America.
I was about to mention
and it was wonderful because I had the possibility to meet with the boss of GM Racing at the time, and they said, we would love to sell cars, but the car is $1 million, and if we were to sell it, it's $1 million to build, and the engine cost $800,000. So, it was simply not a customer racing car. And if you take that out, then people are going to go crazy development, and you will kill GT3 racing.
So to be clear in terms of that process, and it's not making a bigger deal out of this, it is a reality. At some point, the drawbridge is going to come up for some of those manufacturers, and if my maths is correct, that for some of them, it's the end of this year.
And I say that we don't wish to lose anybody, and I hope everybody has produced the 20 cars. But if we lose a couple, then we will lose a couple. It's not. We're not into record. It's not to say, we have 12 and 14 and 15 and 16 manufacturers. We need good fields and good field of people that play by the rule and deserve to be there. And truly, if a manufacturer only intends to produce 6 cars, there is a fantastic category for that, and it's GTE. Just produce 6 GTE, you put 2 in IMSA, you put 2 in European Le Mans, you put 2 in WEC, and it's a great category.
Yep.
You don't need to come to GT3. GT3 is something else.
Perfectly explained again. Let's move on to the next bit, which is GT2. It's the new baby.
Yes.
Something else where you've got the trademark for that. It's caused a bit of confusion about where it sits and.
In power, it's more powerful than GT3.
Yeah.
It's clear. GT4, you are 350 to 320 to 400 horsepower. GT3, you are 500 to 550. GT2, you are 650 to 700, and GT1, you are 800 and plus.
The GT2, Porsche early adopters, we saw that race. I commentated on that race, on those races at Spa. They raced very well. We've now seen the Audi, and we talked just before our press record about some of the work we've done with Marshall on this podcast, for goodness sake, the work I did with Audi. It's an impressive car, and we believe we'll see that car running, racing, the development car at Barcelona. We've also heard from you now a bit more about a slightly revised structure and where we'll see those cars racing with the expansion of Blancpain, of the sports club. Tell us a little bit about the vision, because this is early days for this. We know there are numbers of manufacturers very actively looking at that. I've spoken to most of them.
Yeah.
We don't know yet who's going to announce what and when. There's a lot of guesswork going on at the moment about who, where and when might do that. Tell us from your point of view what you can about how you plan to grow that.
We have, you have to understand the origin of GT2. What that we found out when the evolution of GT3 is basically the cars have got more and more downforce, which is excellent for this, as we say, this mix of sales and marketing return. The evolution to win these big races, you need downforce because you have also professional driver driving them. What we found out in our sports club, which is a series which is really only for gentlemen drivers, that this driver, and we've seen it particularly because you have a lot of Ferrari there, when it moved from the 458 to the 488, one was a low downforce car, the other one was an high downforce car, that these gentlemen were basically going quicker with their 458 than they were with the 488, because using the power is easier than using the downforce. If you feel like taking an Apex at 80 kilometers per hour, to take it at 110 is not obvious. That's the difficulty, and where pros make the difference. So we said maybe we could see the success of, and we had in the back of our mind this GT4 Plus, to say we have these cars, we have this new generation GT4 that are very powerful, so maybe we could just create the GT4 with more power. Discussing to the manufacturer, they said it can't be the same car, because if you put maximum power, then the cooling and the transmission and is not adapted. So then we looked at these new generation cars like the Porsche RS GT2, like the McLaren 720, and we say, wow, there are all these cars now that have 700 horsepower. That could be a class there. So why don't we do the same thing as GT4, the same concept, which means it's a road car modified for racing with standard gearbox, standard electronic, which is a very big difference from GT3. We would have something which is affordable, which is fun to race. Let's try. So we went around the manufacturer, and the first one we convinced was Porsche. And with the success we've seen, because they sold many cars. There again, like GT4, we're not going to see all these cars racing, because some are going to collection and to track days. But the most important for us is that the manufacturers sell cars, and therefore we offer them a place to race.
But that's exactly the same, this process of cool cars going to collectors and going to track days, as we've seen with GT4 and GT3. Absolutely, I can back that up from what I've been told by the manufacturers that are already involved in GT2. They don't see that as downside. They just like selling cars.
Exactly. So, for me, the most important is that they sell cars, and after we'll try to get as many of these cars racing in the 3 platform we're preparing. I mean, in Europe, we have an existing GT Sports Club, which has GT3. Barcelona will be very exciting to see between the GT2 and the GT3s, in the end of the AM driver, who's going to be quicker. And in America, where we don't have a GT3 Sports Club, we will launch it only for GT2 Sports Club. Same thing in Asia, GT2 Sports Club. And from there, we will see where it goes.
It has been a change in the approach.
It might be slow at the beginning, like GT4 was slow at the beginning, but we believe it's the right product. We believe that 5-6 manufacturers will be producing cars, and it's going to be a fantastic category.
Are we still expecting a third manufacturer to declare at Barcelona?
I've been told they will present the cars, so I hope, unless they're delayed, it should be there.
It has been a change to the rollout you planned. I know that initially we were talking about potentially classes for those cars in British GT, which I know is oversubscribed anyway, and in Blancpain World Challenge America. Why the change? Why was the change? Because
with the power of these cars, you don't last the hour. Okay. Very simple.
Yeah.
So you need to have fuel, and they are basically the fuel consumption, and also they are heavy, very powerful cars, and on the brakes and everything. It's definitely not endurance car. It's a sprint car. It's really done for sprint, and we have this sports club platform, so we will keep it for the sports clubs.
And we, at the moment,
when we will see this 3 platform being very healthy and full, then we will think what we can do.
Perfectly fine. GT1. Now you announced there. I think you tell me. It sounded to me like an expansion of the concept you've had with the hypercar days that you had pretty successfully at a couple of the races. Tell me a little bit about GT1. So I know there's a number of people out there that didn't have the opportunity to hear your press conference directly, that maybe have misunderstood exactly what they might see, the owners of these cars might be able to have available to them. Tell me about the concept of new GT1.
It's really to, first of all, this has nothing to do with the ACO hypercar program. This is really for owners. What I've seen logically, that the car manufacturers are producing these extremely
capable
cars in numbers that are not road homologated. So, you see, and it's not a question of, you don't have to look at the GT1 Sports Club as a real competition who's faster. But Porsche produce, in addition to the GT2, they produce the 935, 77 cars. And I spoke to Porsche and I said of this, because when you buy the car, you can have a racing kit. So I asked I say, out of these cars, how many did buy the racing kit? They say about half of the owners. So I'm like, half of the owners, they buy this car and they buy a racing kit, but where are they going to race? Yeah. Because there is nowhere. Same thing speaking to Aston Martin and to our motorsport, which are very involved in the Valkyrie program. And I say, but these are AMR Pro, what are they going to do with them? And then they have,
GTR.
you know, and then David Brabham build the Brabham BT car, and so on and so on. I know other projects that are McLaren with a Senna. You 70 car, what are you going to do with this car? So I'm like, you know, unless it's the same guy that bought one of each, which is a possibility, but I think there are quite a lot of people out there that bought these very special cars, and I know that half of them, maybe more, will go to collection and will never move out. But the other cars, I've seen with the 935, people intend to use them. So why don't we create a platform with really beautiful circuit, very high level setting, to bring, basically to offer, and you see I don't mention Ferrari, because Ferrari, they already have their own program. And they have a successful program with the FXX, because they have the Enzo FXX, they have the 599 FXX, they have the LaFerrari FXXK, so they have enough cars to bring enough together. Yeah. While the problem you have is that if you produce 60 cars like this, 30 go in collection, another 30 guys maybe want to run, but they're very busy people. And as we've seen with the P1 GTR program, you have very few which come together. So I'm like, if we have very few 935 and very few Valkyrie MR, if we have very few Brabhams and if we have very few Sennas, altogether, it could create quite an appealing grid, and for the fans, only for the look of it, will be fantastic. I don't know if we will do just time practice or if we will do racing. The idea is to create a club, to get these owners together, and then to ask them, guys, what do you want to do?
As Chris Renke at Audi said yesterday, we're becoming a more experiential sport. We're becoming, you know, the products. GT2 is another example of it. And effectively, what you've got there is playing to your strengths as an event manager, an event creator, rather than it being a sporting matter. Correct?
Yes, that's really. And I said I'm an entertainer.
Two final questions. One is about, it's a brief question about the other major aspect that you announced at Spa, which is looking ahead to where the sport inevitably is going to have to go in the future to follow what is happening with the mainstream motor industry, or the automotive industry, and the, I guess, another event-based product to do with your vision for future technologies. There's that part of it. And the final question, I'll ask it right up front now, is Blancpain, who've been a fantastic partner. I don't, at the moment, know the status of where you are with conversations with Blancpain about whether or not that will continue. And I'm ashamed if it doesn't, because they have been a fantastic partner. But should we clear that one up first before we go to the future?
I mean, 10 years of partnership is exceptional, you know, so we're discussing and we'll have the final view at Barcelona, or we'll announce it. One thing is sure, that thanks to, you know, we were known in Europe and Asia as Blancpain GT. We were known in America as World Challenge. It was fantastic this year to be able to bring both into the Blancpain GT World Challenge. Now we have a global name, which is GT World Challenge. We hope and wish it will continue being associated with Blancpain. If it's not, we hope and wish it will be associated with another partner. But now we have this global product, and we will never, I mean, in any case, 10 years of this partnership have allowed us to be where we are today, to bring the level of TV production, to bring the level of coverage, to bring, and it is a fantastic partnership, and I wish every fourth promoter to have one like this.
Do you hope there's a way you can make that continue in some regard?
We hope, we always hope.
I wish you the best with it.
Thank you.
Good thing. So the final question is around that future vision. we've never seen ever as rapid a period of change for the automotive industry since the beginning of that industry as we're seeing right now. What role should and could your kind of business play in persuading the sporting side of things to start to move in a direction that will still attract the attention of mainstream motor industry?
It's been the biggest, for the last 10 years. I've been asked so many times, what is your environmental strategy? What are you going to evolve? Are you going to continue burning fuel in this type of racing? And it's a question you need to answer. You cannot just say, what we do is fantastic, we stay like this. Not when the Amazon is burning and Siberia is burning and you have the hottest year we ever had in the history of mankind and all this. It's really a concern, and it has to be a concern for all of us. If you look at everything, and it's a reality, what we have, for example, because when you look at emission, carbon footprint, you have to look at the whole thing. You cannot look only at what your emissions are during the racing. And if you look at the Intercontinental GT Challenge, it's a good concept because you use local car, mainly local car, and you don't transport much. If you do an electric racing formula, when you transport the cars by cargo freighter around the world, the carbon footprint of your championship is certainly higher than the carbon footprint of Intercontinental GT. This is a reality, but beside that is not the right answer, because it's not the reality that matters, it's the perception of reality. And the perception of reality that we need to do something. For many years I believed that we could include new technology into our platform. And I was hoping that you would have electric cars and hybrid cars and coming and being raced successfully here, and that the public will be much more interested to see what is the old world doing next to the new world. That was my vision, but speaking to the manufacturers year on years, being at the FIA, listening to the report of the FIA Technical Working Group, and being at the FIA GT Commission year on year, I won't say, but manufacturer came 4 or 5 years ago saying, we come with this car, next year we'll come with the hybrid, and it never comes. Why it never comes? Because the hybrid system add weights, add complication, which is simply difficult to work in motorsport unless you go to a full hybrid formula, which is maybe something we'll do today, but it's too early because we run production cars, and it's really when all the base 911, the base Ferrari 8-cylinder will all be hybrid that we will really have to think of this all hybrid formula. But we can't wait forever. So we say, okay, if you look at this new technology, you have 3 solutions. You include them in what we have. This is not possible. You put it next to what we have within the same event. It's going to look poor, because after you see this car roaring down the straight line, if you put an electric formula, hydrogen formula, it's going to look, it's not going to look nice for the product. And also, we are selling sensation. We are adrenaline dealers. And as long as the adrenaline being produced by an Audi R8 is higher, the level of adrenaline produced is higher than the level produced by an Audi e-tron, it's not going to work. Our clients buy sensations. So if you offer them the same package with less sensation, they're not going to take it. So what we saw is, how can we offer something different? And I started in my young years organizing a cannonball, and ever since, and I know the enjoyment of using cars on road. And don't believe that I'm going to organize a cannonball with electric cars, because it has to be totally road legal and totally within the rule on the road and road safety. But the idea, we see it next to motorsport, and we see a huge increase of track days of, the automobile. When I was young, loving cars and being French, when you love cars, it was how fast can you go down to Saint-Tropez? How fast can you go down to Deauville? That people loving cars were like, oh, I went to Deauville in 1 hour and 15 minutes. You know, that was what loving a Porsche, because it was, you know, it was already, you had speed limit, but it was kind of it was acceptable, edgy, acceptable. Today, you simply cannot do it. So the passion for cars, which is still there, has transferred into 3 areas. One is just posing. You know, you have a beautiful car, you go to a beautiful restaurant, you give it to the valet, you go to a beautiful hotel. Yeah, I'm not going to say showing off, but somehow it's something like that. The other expression of automobile is to go on racetrack. And the number of track days at literally, I was a young member of the Porsche Club of France. At the time, you had maybe 200 members in France, and you had events when we were renting circuit and going out, we had 30 cars. Now you don't even have a Club Porsche of France. You have regional clubs with hundreds and hundreds of cars. You know, thousands of members. And you see it with all the brands, you see it. So track days, and we have a company, Curbstone, is exploding. Yeah. Exploding. We're organizing each year more, and we're full everywhere, and it's a big success because the expression of the love for automobile, you go on a racetrack. And rallies. You have more and more of these touristic, sporty rally. Look at the Tour de France with historic cars, with club cars, with modern cars, they're everywhere because people can gather together, have fun together, drive amazing roads, see incredible sceneries. So I thought that might be the market, because on the racetrack, first of all, it exists already, and Formula E is doing a fantastic job, but we need to make this car sexy, because what we mentioned is that the European automobile manufacturers are planning today, as of today, the number of plug-in cars between hybrids and electric is 4% of the production. They are planning, they are entirely in gears to produce 22% of the production in 5 years. It's not an evolution, it's a revolution. And the problem, their big problem, is they don't know how they're going to sell them. It's really a problem, because for the moment, the market demand is not there. So if we can contribute as one of the leading motorsport promoter in saying we can help making this car sexy, we will do it. And we believe that the formula we presented is fun, and brings, like GT3, like what we do, this combination of sales, potential sales, and marketing. And that's what we want to do, because each day you will have 2 events. One can be an hill climb, one can be a 20-minute race on some beautiful lost circuit, because you have many of them in Europe. Many of them you can't use because you can't make noise. They can't be noisy, you know, so you can go with these cars and do these events, and you stop for lunch in a city where you are welcomed, and where you are on the central, you know, plaza, and in the evening you go to a bigger city where you are the stars and the participant and the manufacturers. It's a way to bring this sexy concept, initially concept cars, but then small production sports cars, electric sports cars, hydrogen sports car, to a larger public. And I think it's very complementary to what Formula E is doing, while being very different. And I think it's very GT, it's very dream cars, and we believe we can succeed doing that.
Fabulous. Well explained, sir. And thank you for giving almost an hour of your time in the Suzuka 10 hours, a very busy day.
And that was Stephane Ratel and Graham Goodwin. Hopefully you know lots more about the world of the SRO organization and all of its various championships and formulas that it leads, and look forward to seeing what happens here. Definitely feels like there's a lot of momentum coming their way that hopefully you and me and many others will enjoy, whether it's professionally or just simply as fans. All right, I am Marshall Pruitt. This is a Marshall Pruitt podcast, brought to you by Cooper Tires and the Justice Brothers. Thank you for listening.